Hi, everyone. It's Laura Wilson, co-founder of Intentional Household, certified Colby consultant and print coach.
And I'm Alex Wilson. Wow. Wow. Laura knows what that's about. My second city stint. And I'm co-founder, entrepreneur, Remax Wealth Builders Real Estate. And on today's episode, and Intentional Household, of course. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about why do we wait until someone dies to tell all the great stories about them? I think there is great power in telling the stories today while people are living. And let's get into that.
So, Alex, today's episode was inspired, I suppose, by the death of my grandpa. He passed away about a month ago. While we were planning his funeral and putting together his obituary, his eulogy, the family members, we all came together and we were piecing together the story of his incredible life. And it wasn't until he passed away when we really took the time to appreciate all of the amazing things that he had done in his life and the effect that he had had on others, and his bravery coming to Canada, taking a chance, bringing his family, bringing many other families, and establishing himself in Canada. And it had me thinking about my own life and my own history and why I'm not sharing stories with my kids and what I can do or what we can do as parents to maintain our history and to pass that down to our kids so that they have an understanding of our lives once we pass.
Yeah, and it's not just, I would say, our lives, but it's also our parents' lives while they're still living. Also sharing those historical stories as well of our ancestors, continuing those stories even once they passed on. But it allows your children to be inspired. It allows them to see, wow, this is where I come from. Gives them a source of pride to work off of. And also it allows them to look back at their elders and go, that person's cool. They did that, as opposed to seeing them, in the light they see them on a daily basis. And we don't tell those stories, or we don't tell them often, and they kind of get lost in everything. So I think can be a great source of inspiration for the children, of something to live up to, and to give them kind of a North Star guiding light when maybe they're feeling a little down on themselves.
And I'm sure a lot of parents or individuals are thinking, I have so much time to do that. I'm young, right? I'll get to that eventually. But I want to share this about my dad. My dad had sent me an email one day. I had been living in Australia. He sent me an email and he said, I just finished writing my memoir. I've printed it. I put it in a duotang and I've left it on your desk for you. And I thought, well, okay. I mean, I'll read it when I get home from Australia. And then a week later, he died. And my point is, you never know when you're going to die. I don't think my dad thought he was going to die a week after writing his memoir, being 57 years old. We know a lot of people who have died at a young age. So the idea is take action now because the future is uncertain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to go on a little tangent here. When, Laura, and actually have these conversations with your spouse, partner as well, going, hey, we're going to die one day. We could, something could happen to us tomorrow. And yes, you want to make sure that you have the will set up, and you want to make sure that you have your insurance set up so everything's taken care of, and you have your executor set up and all those important things. But on the other end, it's, what if we don't take the time to tell the stories to the children? And my joke to Laura is that I know that if something happens to me, she'll remarry. And I tell her that if something happens to her, I won't remarry. we made an agreement that when she remarries, that there'll be a portrait of me above the fireplace, and that her and her husband, her future husband, after I'm gone, will have to thank me every day for the life that I have provided the household. But where this story comes from, and yes, this is true, we had this conversation. Where the story comes from is that how it relates to this topic is the stories again, right? It's the idea that I'm gone and I don't want to be forgotten, and I want the stories to be told. That's essentially what it is. You know, the my joke about, it's not a joke. I do want the portrait above the fireplace. Um, but it's telling the story so that you're not forgotten, so that the kids know everything that you've worked hard to do, because here it is, here's the value. What the children see is the end result. They're seeing the end result of everything. They don't see everything that happened before to get you there. That's why you tell the stories, because they have to see all the hard work, all the sacrifice that got put in to get them where they are today and where you are today. So without telling the stories, they won't know all the sacrifice. And also, again, it gives them kind of a roadmap to follow, going, okay, they're, mom or dad did this, or grandma and grandpa did this, or great grandma and great grandpa did this, or Gung Gung and Papa, talking about Laura's half Chinese, did this. So telling these stories to help provide them a roadmap on, okay, this is how you can achieve this, or wow, maybe you don't want to do those things, so you don't want to go that route. Maybe I want to go a different route. But without sharing those stories, you're not going to be giving them the life experiences that would be so valuable to them to learn about.
Let's talk about traditions. There are many traditions that we follow in our household, whether they were started by our parents, our grandparents, and we continue to follow them in our family. Why do you think traditions are important? And what do you think are some of the things we can do to pass them on to our kids so that they continue?
Well, what traditions are is a structured way to capture moments. That's essentially what it is, the way I look at it. A tradition is a way to capture a moment, to allow people to be physically and mentally present in a moment. And with that tradition, it just brings everyone together in a nice, convenient way. Um, that's the value of maintaining a certain tradition. And it's an easy story to tell. Where I want to go with this as well, and we were talking about this before, um, with today's technology, it's so easy to capture these certain traditions and moments, which is great. Um, but take it to the next level so that these certain things may not get lost. And an example we were talking about is that, and Laura's family owned restaurants. But how great would it be to have um, a parent or even a grandparent of this while they're still alive? Again, you can go in there, take your phone, which is also a video camera, and go, hey, grandma or grandpa, I really love your cookies. Can you show me how to make them? And now you've captured that moment on video with them. And then they can tell the story about the cookie. And what I mean, the story of the cookie, how did they get the recipe? How do they perfect it? And but also what they're sharing that moment. It's not just the recipe and the making of the cookies. It's the experiences along the way and the stories that are going to come out when they're making that cookie. So they can talk about, well, my mom did this for me when we were making cookies, or it was like this back then. Or maybe, that's recipes, or it's a pasta sauce, or maybe it's capturing a moment on video with again, it could be a grandma, could be a grandpa, and they're fixing something and they're showing you how to get that item fixed. Again, it's the stories about how they learned. We have YouTube videos for how to figure out everything, but how valuable would it be to have that video of that parent or that grandfather? You're taking a video of them so that when you go back and you're looking at it going, wow, that's my dad teaching me how to, or my grandpa teaching me how to build this, or my grandma or grandpa teaching me how to, cook this, or whatever, sharing the tradition down. And now that's what you're doing, is you're capturing these memories and sharing the stories.
Yep. And it's even more special when it's from them with their voice sharing it and you can hear and see them. And that's and I would say don't wait too long to do it because my grandma, she when she was working in the restaurant, she made Singapore noodles all the time and we loved them. She stopped working in the restaurant. They retired, sold the business, and they were at home. And we finally asked my grandma to teach us and show us how to make the Singapore noodles. And by then, she had lost her touch. So when she showed us, which we weren't recording, so we would have lost that memory anyway. But by the time she did show us or try to teach us, the recipe just wasn't the same. And so by that point, it was just too late.
And then even I'll just fast forward it to now. If you were to ask her now, she is still around, but suffers from dementia, and she doesn't even know who you are anymore. So it's not even just, someone's gonna pass away. It's also, are they even physically able to show you how to do that anymore?
She wouldn't be able to show us. And for us to even ask questions about her history and her life, she wouldn't be able to communicate that. So that's why it's important to get on that sooner than later. One thing that I do with our kids, you probably don't even know this, is every year I'll just jot some notes in my phone about their past year, just highlights of the year, things that they've achieved, and so on.
I'm glad you do that. To the audience that's listening, when you have three kids in quick succession order, we've been really bad. I just remember when I was a kid, I had this beautiful, big, massive
The
baby
baby
book.
book.
I don't
It's
think I
so
don't think
bad.
I don't think our third has anything.
Well,
So
the
I'm
first
I'm,
part
I'm
is,
actually glad you
yeah,
have
but
some notes.
my point is that I've been so focused on capturing their memories and I've spent no time on mine.
Mhm.
And even if I were to pass and you had to start my story from scratch, you wouldn't be able to. You would have to turn to my sisters because those early days in Stratford and the schools I went to, you don't even know what schools I went to. So, I mean, I'm not saying that we need to go back and document starting at year one of since we were born, but there's no better time to start than now to document just certain times in our life, milestones, achievements. And I know that's something that my sister and her husband, they actually do every year at their on their anniversary. They're recording successes for the past year. And if they were to pass away and their daughters were able to get that book, they would have a log of their marriage essentially and their achievements along the way.
And it helps give their children a roadmap to success.
Mhm.
Whatever that be, and just because if you think about it, when you were a child or a teenager or young adult, or even now, because I do have family members that do look deep into ancestry, right? And they get enjoyment, satisfaction from that, the story from that. So having that, sharing those stories that can be passed down, through the generations, is just gonna help people feel better about where they came from. And they're gonna and you're sharing knowledge too. They're like, it's not just the stories. There's also valuable knowledge that being passed down as well.
Now, there are some families who don't have traditions that their family followed growing up for whatever reason. And they have a young family that they have formed now and have the ability to start creating their own traditions. So, do you want to share some of the traditions or some of the rituals that we do with our family just to give examples?
Well, we do the best Halloween ever.
Okay, so we
Like,
do Halloween.
we do. Well, it's not just Halloween. It's the best Halloween ever. Um, so why I'm going deep on Halloween is we do, arguably the best or second best house in the neighborhood, because there is a really good house, another really good house that we aspire to be. But the kids know, like they know, like they're like, wow, Sloan, wow, you have the Halloween house. right? So we're known as a Halloween house on our street, and it's a whole month-long production to get it ready. Um, and the kids love it. They love everything about Halloween. So Halloween's a big tradition for our house.
Another one I was going to say is birthdays.
Hmm.
So for birthdays, the night before, we will create a poster, a happy birthday poster, print off pictures, write motivating words on it to describe the birthday girl or birthday boy. We will put up a happy birthday banner. We always put up balloons. That I would say is a tradition that they've come to expect.
And I like that even though you were against the idea of this tradition, it seems to actually have been completed. After their birthday is completed, it then moves to another wall in their playroom, and and then for the whole year they have their happy birthday poster up on the wall, which I think is really really cool.
Yep. Um, there's Christmas tradition that we follow. We always go up north. We spend it with your family. Your mom is the one who is she's the one who really makes Christmas for the family. And I was actually talking to another mom who it's same in her family. It's the grandma
Mhm.
who is the one leading the charge for Christmas. And she said one day it is going to be me who has to continue this tradition.
Does that mean, like Grandpa does, I'm gonna have to drive tractors and build snow mountains?
Well, it's finding a way to maintain that because that is a tradition that our family has come to expect. And so passing it on so that we can continue reliving that.
Hmm. 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 Yeah. So anyway, like if you're a new family, and here maybe there hasn't been positives, right? Maybe there hasn't been positives. That doesn't mean that you can't break the cycle and create new traditions or take positive experiences maybe from the past and bring those forward. Um, but you can create a tradition. You can create a tradition tomorrow. You can create the tradition of you tomorrow, whatever it is, and then just do that repetitively every year,
Hmm.
like that on that date. That's a tradition that you could create. Just committing to something and doing it. And a book that we recently read, and um, it is The Family Board Meeting, uh, inspired by 18 Summers, something along those lines.
By
Uh,
Jim Shields.
yes. But all it is about is just setting time every 90 days to have a 4 hour individual time with a child. And why I say with a child, because if you have 3 children, that is not intentional time with one child. So if you have 3 children, you would have um, every 90 days, 3 different days booked where you're going to spend intentional time with that child. We encourage you to read the book. I'm not going to go too in depth, but that's a tradition, right? That's a tradition, right? And talking about sharing stories, that's a great opportunity for you to share stories as the child ages, and you're going to share stories about how their current life reflects back to what you lived through, and it gives you an opportunity to share the stories in an intimate and intentional environment. So instead of waiting until you're dead, why don't you share those stories now? And if the argument is, I don't know when I'm going to tell those stories, well, look at traditions. Look at when specific times you have those moments with your children that you can tell the stories. And I think having those family board meetings set up every 90 days is a great opportunity to relate to your children and have and pass stories on to them.
And I would say, as a whole, if you're not doing any of these, again, you can start anytime, but I would take a step back and reflect on if I were to go today, what is the story I'm leaving behind and how would I be perceived by my kids and my family?
I'm gonna relate back now to a previous podcast we did, but showing up as the best version of yourself, right? So look at yourself today, and again, if you're a person that's not taking care of yourself, and you're short, and you don't have a lot of patience with your family and that kind of thing, do you want that to be the story that your family remembers of you? And if you were to something's going to happen to you the next day, why wait to be a better version of yourself going, I'm going to get to that tomorrow? You need to start being the better version of yourself today, because otherwise that's going to be the story that defines you in your children's eyes.
Or I was just going to say, are you too busy working, too busy getting tasks done, that you aren't spending the one-on-one time with your kids, and they don't have those memories, and they aren't thinking about you and your memories together. They're thinking about the parent that they saw who was too busy to spend time.
Or even better, you're there and you're the parent on the phone, right?
Yeah.
You're the parent on your phone. You're like, wow, I remember my kid. I remember my dad or mom just being on their phone, and they didn't want to pay any attention to me. And that's all about intentionality, right? And that gets down to the root of intentional household, is being the intentional self, being that person, and creating those moments with them and generating stories. And I think that a revelation like this is a great line. The story you're writing today, you're writing, how you live today is how you're writing your story. Is that how you want to be remembered? And if you look at how you're writing your story today and how you're living today, and you're like, that's not how I want to be remembered. Okay, well, guess what? Pencils have erasers. Let's change the story. Let's go in a different direction. You can do it. You just need to make changes to be more intentional and create more time. It's all doable. We know this. Again, done so much coaching over the years. And the great thing is, when you do this coaching, and we're huge fans of Strategic Coach. When I go into one of my Strategic Coach quarterlies, there is not an excuse I can give to not be the best version of myself. It is, I'm just creating my own obstacle. There is no excuse I can give. Zero. There's none. That excuse would get shot down. So there's no excuse, none. Sickness, death, anything, none. There's no excuse not be the best version of myself, because whenever there's an obstacle, there's a solution to remove that obstacle. So let's rewrite your story today by changing how you live if you're not happy with it.
So let's talk about some easy action items to start implementing.
Sure. I'm like inspired now.
Good. You should be. Great. The first one I would say is, if there are family recipes that someone is making, you don't know how to make it, A, get that recipe. B, record that person making the recipe.
By the way, I thought we thought we had this incredible idea about creating this online resource where you could share these recipes, and we were going to call it Recipe Vault. And guess what? That exact idea and that exact name was used with that idea. So it does exist.
Yeah.
You can share your recipes intimately with other family members with discretion. With a company called Recipe Vault, because that was our exact idea and exact name. It existed already.
Yeah. So capture those recipes, get them recorded. Another thing I've heard people doing is, if there's a story or a book that you or your kids love, and you have memories of your parent or grandparent reading it, get that parent or grandparent recorded reading that story so that you can capture that and their voice telling that story. Another one was, if you are not spending time with your kids, read the book. What's the book called again?
The Family Board Meeting.
18
Summers.
Yeah, so that you could start
by
Jim Shields, so that you can start implementing these quarterly one-on-ones.
Easy read, guys. Like, you can read it in a few hours, and it's just going to show you that, just create every quarter, hang out with your kid like that intentionally, and it gives you the roadmap to do that.
Yep. And like always, consider what is taking you away from this quality time. What can you remove from your plate so that you can build in this time with your kids and your family?
Yeah, because remember, there is literally no excuse why you can't do this. It's just an obstacle to remove. That's all. And just, you got to figure out what the obstacle is and what the core problem is. Once you remove that core problem, whatever it is, right? Like, I'll go way out there. Hey, let's say maybe you're living in the wrong city. Maybe you're living in the wrong city, and that's the core problem, and you need to change cities. Okay, like remove that obstacle, right? Or is it or is there something you're gonna do? No, Laura, we're not moving cities. I just wanted to go big in regards to how people can think about an issue and how they can resolve it, right? There's always a big solution or a little solution.
If you have traditions that you're following and would like to share them, please reach out to us on Instagram. You can always DM us. We'd love to hear what you are doing to maintain your family history. Thank you for listening.